stories that we hear relate to a number of aspects of the functioning of the organization. We hear, for example, that the safe empowerment of staff through the CEO enables a great deal more agility and creativity and responsiveness. That staff are able to deal with emergencies. They're able to respond to emerging needs and situations in a way that would not have been possible without that empowerment. So we commonly hear that we have a staff that is both under control and empowered to just forge ahead and make decisions. We hear stories from boards that say, we would have been quite stuck given the arising of a particular scenario. We wouldn't really have known how to respond to it, except that we're using a situation in which we're using a governance paradigm in which our rules for ourselves are really clear. And so instead of being stuck and wondering, oh goodness, now what? We just go back to the basics and say, now how did we say we were going to respond to this sort of situation? We hear stories that tell us that there is a much greater level of assurance that the organization is actually producing something worth having, as opposed to being very busy and very righteously busy, but not really sure we're actually doing anything that's any good to anyone. So much more clarity about that. And we also hear that the demands placed on the Policy Governance Board are extremely attractive to some sorts of people and not to others. And so there can be some self-selection about which board do I want to work with or serve on. And it's very helpful for people who want to volunteer, and certainly don't want to discourage people volunteering. It's helpful for volunteers to be able to figure out at what level of organization do I want to make my contribution. Do I want to be a service-providing volunteer, which is hugely valuable to a lot of nonprofits, or do I want to be a governing volunteer, because now I can actually tell the difference between what those jobs are.
From a staff perspective, we hear staff saying that they have been relieved of the extra work burden of preparing for meeting with sometimes hand-holding and babysitting board committees, which under policy governance in many cases end up not being needed. Not always, but in many cases. We've also heard CEOs who are quite happy being held accountable, because they are like that as individuals, but they are particularly happy knowing exactly what they're going to be accountable for, instead of having to guess that somewhat by board methods which allow them to be criticized and denigrated in some cases, or at least unfairly evaluated, based on criteria they never knew ahead of time. We also hear them acting as if they're quite happy that the board process is now disciplined in such a way that the staff is not open prey to a particular board member who likes to get in there and swing weight around. All those things make the staff operation much more predictable, much more able to pull itself together for accomplishment, rather than trying to either care for a board or to dodge the board
or stage manage
the board. So this kind of list that Miriam had just went through and that I added to, we could go on with that. It goes on and on and on, the kinds of things. Boards are giving more time to the ends issues, finding that they have a rich investment in that very difficult but very important area of what are we here exactly to accomplish. It is a kind of discussion that boards usually have too little time for. On policy governance, that's what they have most of their time for.